Jungkook made a shocking decision. Not an ordinary one. He voluntarily took on a solo reconnaissance mission for 3 full days, leaving behind all his team members, including his closest friend, Jimin. This decision not only created an emotional wave in the military camp, but also shook the army community around the world. Why did Jungkook do that? What made Jimin cry at night? And how did these two best friends survive when distance and duty separated them? What really happened behind the military barracks fences? Jungkook has been known as a reserved and quiet person since joining the military. But it was his striking calmness that caught the commander's attention. He is disciplined, accurate, and rarely complains. During training, he runs earlier, lifts heavier weights, and even volunteers for solo battle simulations. His perfectionist nature is what led his superiors to assign him high-risk individual missions, one of them being a night reconnaissance in an isolated forest area. When the offer came, Jungkook didn't hesitate. He simply nodded, even though he knew it meant leaving Jimin, the person who had almost always been by his side since their trainee days. For Jimin, Jungkook's departure was not just a temporary goodbye. Days without Jungkook felt silent and suffocating. A witness from the group training revealed, usually Jimin always smiled and cheered us up. But that week, he was much quieter. Seemed like he was holding something in. When night came and all the troops returned to the barracks, Jimin sat alone in a corner of the room, staring blankly out the window facing the dark field, the place where Jungkook might be walking alone with full gear on his back. The third night became the peak. In an internal CCTV recording, Jimin was seen with his head bowed on his bed, eyes wet, and hands holding a piece of paper. It was a note from Jungkook before the mission. "If I don't return on time, don't worry. I'll still find my way back to you." Not an overly sentimental line, but in the harsh military context, those words were like a restrained hug, full of emotional weight that only those who experience it firsthand can understand. What made the situation even more emotional was that Jungkook, on that mission, faced extreme temperatures, minimal communication, and had to survive with limited supplies. But what he carried for 3 days wasn't just maps and weapons, but also a piece of bread wrapped in clear plastic, something that seemed trivial, yet was deeply meaningful. When he returned to the camp on the 4th day, in ragged clothing and an exhausted body, the first thing he did was sneak into the group training area and slip the bread into Jimin's locker. That was the moment that left many other soldiers speechless. No words, no speeches. Just a small act carrying deep longing and solidarity. I've never seen a soldier that mentally strong, but I've also never seen one that gentle in his care, said one of the training instructors. Their temporary separation continued amid rotating duties. Jungkook was often sent for high-risk tactical simulations, while Jimin was relied upon to mentor new recruits and handle emotional crises among young conscripts. In different roles, both became backbones in their own ways. But the pressure reached its peak when a minor incident occurred. Jimin was late for morning assembly because he was helping a fellow soldier who had a panic attack. A humane act, but still against protocol. He was reprimanded in public. And that night, he wrote a note left under Jungkook's bed. "Today I failed as a soldier, but I hope I didn't fail as a friend." That note became an emotional trigger for Jungkook. A barrack mate shared. He didn't talk that night. Just sat at the corner of his bed, reading the note over and over while staring blankly. That was the first time I saw a fragile expression from someone so strong. The next day, Jungkook approached his superior and requested to join group training duties, saying he wanted to learn how to work in a team. A rare move for a soldier of his individual caliber. Gradually, their closeness that had been strained by different duties began to reconnect. But unlike before, now the relationship was wrapped in a new maturity. They no longer needed many words or constant physical presence. They had learned that true bonds are tested when distance and time intervene. When asked by one of the trainers about the hardest part of military life, Jungkook simply replied, "Letting the person you protect learn to survive without you." Meanwhile, Jimin, in a personal evaluation session, wrote, I know what it feels like to be alone, and I know what it feels like to hold on because someone believes in you. Their story didn't become media consumption due to the private nature of the military environment. But the testimonies of soldiers, trainers, and commanders showed how profound the impact of these two global icons was. Not just as celebrities, but as soldiers who brought humanity into a system usually cold and full of rules. The Army community, having received leaks of this story through unofficial discussions on online platforms, responded with waves of emotion. Thousands of messages of support, prayers, and appreciation flooded fan forums. Many admitted to crying after reading snippets of the story about Jimin being left alone and Jungkook walking alone in the cold night. Now, fans no longer just await grand stages with lights and cheers. They await the day Jungkook and Jimin return, not just as stars, but as two individuals who've passed a test of sincerity and loyalty that fame cannot buy, and one lingering question remains. Will this experience change the course of their lives forever? The answer may not be known yet. But one thing is certain: among the mud, sweat, and silence of military life, these two friends have written the most human chapter in BTS's journey, a serious reflection on the BTS Jungkook and Jimin military story, emotional truth or sensational fabrication. After reading the in-depth narrative about the emotional dynamics between BTS members Jungkook and Jimin during their military service, a fundamental question arises, one that should pause us from the flood of emotions that overwhelm the mind. Did this story truly happen as described, or is it a carefully constructed narrative meant to shape an image, evoke sympathy, and strengthen public loyalty to celebrity figures? This article doesn't merely touch on the humanity of two public figures long known as global superstars, but also strikes a critical point in our information society. How do we discern between sincere empathy and hidden narrative manipulation? We must understand from the start that most of the information circulating about Jungkook and Jimin during their military service did not come from official military reports from South Korea. There are no formal statements from the military, no press documentation explicitly confirming emotional moments such as the slipped note, late-night tears, or the silent bread offering. If so, where did this story come from? Most of this story has developed in highly fluid digital spaces: TikTok, YouTube, Twitter fan bases, and fan communities scattered across various countries. That's where the narrative begins to be assembled, structured, even sometimes embellished with imagination and assumptions. Are we aware that the world of social media has a strong tendency to create fiction that feels real? The important question we must ask is, are we witnessing reality, or merely swept into a narrative built on the collective desire to believe something touching? This reflection is not intended to dismantle trust or diminish the emotional value that may have been genuinely experienced by Jungkook and Jimin. However, as informed and responsible consumers of information, we must maintain a healthy skepticism. We must be brave enough to ask, who is spreading this information? What's the motive? What authentic evidence accompanies it? Why is this story emerging now? Is it part of a branding strategy or merely an uncontrolled fan-made narrative? In several cases, we have seen how emotional narratives can shape public perception massively, even without verifiable concrete facts. The entertainment world, especially in the global K-pop sphere, often moves along a very fine line between reality and image construction. Is there a possibility that this narrative is part of a reputation management effort to strengthen Army loyalty during BTS's stage hiatus? Furthermore, we need to recognize that social media is fertile ground for emotional engineering. Short video clips, text-based narratives with dramatic illustrations, and melancholic voiceovers often blur the line between fiction and documentary. How many of us read without checking sources? How many of us share content just because we feel moved without asking, is this real? In this context, it's important to emphasize that the article you've read, though crafted with a journalistic approach, is sourced from unofficial information stemming from social media observations and unverified narratives not confirmed by military institutions or official BTS representatives. Therefore, every reader should not take this information at face value. Instead, we must process it critically, question its accuracy, and discuss it in healthy dialogue spaces. TOU readers, now it's your turn to reflect. Is this story a reflection of deep human connection under extreme conditions, or just a beautiful narrative too good to be true? Please leave your comments, thoughts, or analysis. And before you share this article with others, make sure you've thought twice, not just with your heart, but with your logic. Thank you for your attention. Keep reading with an open mind, sharp eyes, and a heart not easily swayed.